Okay, so I'll start over again. This is Mary Payton. I'm the chair of the South County Task Force, and we have our legislators joining us today. We have Kathy Tran and Adam Eben, and we're expecting Delegate Mark Sickles, Delegate Paul Krizak.
We have Delegate Krizak is on.
Oh, good. Hi, Paul, and possibly Senator Servo. So we have saying that Delegate Sickles and Delegate Tran have to leave a little bit early, so we were going to give them some priority in speaking. And we wanted to just have a conversation with them about what they're looking for in this next short session that's coming up. And I'll mainly discuss some of the issues that are of concern to people in the Route 1 community corridor, which are affordable housing, rent relief, evictions, food, displacement from gentrification. People are very nervous about that. We're also in the past have advocated for restoration of voting rights for felons and amendments coming up on that, and for immigrant rights. And we know the budget, we want more money for affordable housing. We know this is not a budget year. We know it's a short session. We know you have limited number of bills that you can introduce. So maybe we should start with Kathy, who is mainly represents the 42nd, who represents the 42nd district, and that would be more on the southern end of Route 1. And that end is also having the same issues as we are in terms of COVID and poverty and evictions and issues. And then when Delegate Sickles comes on, he's our budget meister. And so we'll ask him to say a few things about what we can expect in terms of budget amendments this session. And then we want to talk with Adam about displacement and housing and whatever else he's got going this year. So Kathy, do you want to say a few things first before you have to, I see you're being overwhelmed there.
It's school's out, so you might meet any number of my children through the session. And I saw Paul's off video, but he's also on, Paul Krizak too.
Okay.
So the part I have, so you guys, are probably really familiar already with the geography of the 42nd district, but I cross over with Senator Eben, one precinct in Mount Vernon. I say that, but it's like where the house is. And then I go south, essentially. And so up to the Prince William border, and then west. So southeast and southern Fairfax County. So parts of Lorton, it would I think fall under kind of this area of the Route 1 corridor. First of all, just a little bit around immigrant rights. I think those were one of the things you had mentioned, Mary. On January 1, the bill that I had carried with Paul's great support, with Adam's support, and Mark Sickles' support, and so many others, and Scott Sorrell, of course, is to allow undocumented immigrants and other immigrant refugees the opportunity to get driving privileges in Virginia. And that takes effect January 1. And we've been working with the DMV just to make sure that everybody in the community understands the what's going to be, the policies around the program, in order to have your photo ID, in order to show that you've paid, meet the tax requirement, and be able to be prepared for the knowledge and road exams as they come up. So we've been working really closely with the DMV to get that information out to the communities, and to iron out any of those policy conversations ahead of time. So I think the DMV is really ready and excited to be able to begin this process starting January 1. If you are working with members of the community or know of members who are interested in getting a driver privilege card, I think really encourage folks to sign up now for an appointment. We all know it's just kind of a process, and given COVID and the DMV's limited ability to see people in person, you have to get an appointment, and sometimes there's just lots of folks who are looking for appointments. So start that process now, and then study, right? I think In other states, what's been shown by data is that in other states that have implemented a driving privilege card, the individual has to take the test a couple of times. And so we want people to just be as prepared as possible when they're coming in. It saves them time and actually money to do that. And I know there's groups that are starting up, practicing online together or practicing together in other ways just to prepare. So that's top of mind. We also started last year an Office of New Americans. It's a bill that Senator Evan has carried in the past and has been extremely supportive of. And that office, and will now has a position. Mona Siddiqui was hired in the chief, the office of the chief equity, the chief of equity, inclusion, and diversity. If I got all those words right in the right order, but at Dr. Underwood's office to really look at and handle the immigration portfolio. And so I have a couple of things that I'm going to be working with in the Office of New Americans and with Mona on that'll come in as budget requests. One is, and I think what COVID has really just shown a harsh light on, is this issue around language access. And it's really uneven in Virginia. So you might go to DMAS and get information about, Medicare or Medicaid, and you might be able to get it in a particular language. But if you go over to, social services and you need supports around other benefits, it might not come in. You might not be able to get it in that language. Or if you go to get your unemployment insurance, that's been really difficult in that area. So what we're going to request is for a work group to take a look at what should Virginia's language access policy be. What ought to be, what should our threshold be for translating materials? What ought to be translated? When should it be translated? How should it be translated in hard copy, only online, all of that. And I think it's actually really a really complex issue when you kind of tease it apart. So we want a work group to be able to delve really deeply in that and make some solid recommendations for us, looking at all the state programs. In addition to that, we don't want to wait for that work group to do its work and then come back out for the next budget, which puts us in July of 2022 before we can take action. So I'm going to be, I think, requesting some money for to do some immediate enhancements of the translations that are available for DSS to make sure that immigrants and refugees who are not English proficient are able to access the programs at the state level for support, particularly given COVID and the challenges we're facing now. And then we'll also be making a request for some grant money for immigrant and refugee serving organizations, whether it be, helping the community respond to COVID, helping with legal services, helping with citizenship prep. As we know, DHS, US DHS has a new citizenship test that is, very different in terms of the kind of detailed questions it's asking than the previous test. So make sure that the community is prepared for that. So there's the three pieces in kind of the immigration space. In addition, really excited, as I said, about the driver privilege card, but there are some loopholes in the who can access DMV data. So we're going to be working to close those loopholes this year, and that's going to be a top priority to make sure that ICE is not able to access our DMV data and be able to then track undocumented community members, which they're doing in other parts of the country. And then also we'll have some provisions in there generally for all of our privacy, trying to close all those loopholes about who and when the DMV can share our data with others.
So if people go now, make their appointment for January, are those loopholes in there now, or will they be closed
They
up?
are still there now. We were not able to close them all. It's pretty strong. So like, for example, ICE cannot come in and say, nobody can, but including ICE. So nobody can come in and say, DMV, tell me all the like 5'1" Asian American women in Fairfax County. So I wouldn't pop up. They would actually have to say, tell me about Kathy Tran, who lives at that particular address in Fairfax County, right? So they can still access my information now. They just can't do like a quote, like a Google search, right? Like a broad search like that. But even with the limitations now, there's real concerns that they can even access it at this moment if they make that decision to do so.
So would your bill go into effect before the end of the session, the loopholes?
So in order to go in, to take effect before the end of any of this session coming up, you have to pass it with an emergency clause, which is 2/3 of the folks, I believe, 2/3 or 80%, right? Anyway, it's a high bar, and probably on this issue, we would not be able to get that level of support. But
Okay.
I think there's been community education that's happening around so that people, as they're making the decision to get a DPC, understand and are able to weigh some of these decisions. But if we're able to pass
Okay.
this bill, then hopefully it'll take effect July 1. That'll be good.
Okay.
Um,
Diego, let me ask Diego. Diego works for Supervisor Stork. What have you been hearing around in the Hispanic community about getting driver's license, and are people reluctant, or are they doing it, or what's happening?
Yeah, so recently, for about all of this week and a little bit of last, Mount Vernon District and Lee District have actually been working together to get out the information of the draft requirements that have recently been released from the DMV. So the DMV released the guidance document of the proposed requirements for the program on November 24th. We sent that out with Lee District in the food distribution. We sent out a little flyer with how to engage in the public comment component, because the public comment component is available until December 23rd. And we want to ensure that the community has a time to review the document, see if it's too restrictive, if there could be alternative documents that might be provided, so the DMV can consider that when creating the finalized version of these requirements. So we're getting this information out to the community so people know more or less what to expect with the requirements that are going to come up. Additionally, yesterday there was an information session put on by the Office of the Governor and the DMV, where there were representatives. The meeting was in Spanish, and they talked about the privacy and confidentiality component, where they talked a little bit about what Representative Tran just mentioned, where they talked about, ICE can't come in and ask for bulk data, right? They can't just say, I would like to know, everybody's name that ends with Rodriguez. Like they just can't do that. And there are some loopholes there. And when I attempted to ask some of those questions, they told me to email them instead. So, everything is still being sort of drafted and finalized. So as of right now, nothing is set in stone, but we are getting that information out to the community so people know that. And we're doing that through direct outreach with the community leaders we have established throughout Mount Vernon District. I've been reaching out to faith organizations as well as nonprofits in the area so they can get that information out as well. And with our Fairfax County resources or connections.
Okay. So you're working with Leah and Progresso and United Community and all those folks. Okay, well that's good.
I think also, Mary, and Diego, yes, bulk data. Thank you, bulk requests. But I think the other piece is the DMV was in touch with stakeholder groups working in the immigration space around what types of IDs could be used to be your photo ID requirement to help meet that, and what they're looking at in terms of allowing for, if you had a driver's license in another state or in another country, which ones they'll take. So they did take in community input on that. And I think we're just going to continue working on closing those data loopholes, the privacy loopholes around ICE. So I think if folks are interested in that issue, Diego, please send them our way. I'm going to have that bill this year, and so that we can make sure that they share their stories and their concerns so we can help lift that up. And we'll, be looking forward to add.
Yeah, we hope we could send you some, especially with Zoom, we can send you people to testify if that's called for on these issues.
Yep. And I think
Diego can.
There was a question about, will the DMV system flag that a person is undocumented? So the answer is no. It's not like there's a button that says, check this person's undocumented. However, they categorize what type of driving card, right, that you're applying for, and you are applying for a driver privilege card. So that is an indicator. However, if I remember correctly, what we have done in the bill we passed this past year, as well as in a bill that Delegate Ayala and I worked with her on around privacy to close some loopholes, was to say that the type of card is privileged information. So they couldn't request the type of card. Rodriguez,
Okay.
did I remember that correctly?
Mary, this is Delegate Krizak.
That's correct.
Kathy's worked really hard on this, and Diego, we've had meetings, and also with Senator Eben and others on this, because this is something our community has wanted and needed for a long, long time. And so we want to make sure this is done correctly, and that we're not going to have ICE waiting outside of the DMV on January 1 when the law goes into effect. And rounding people up. So the important thing to recognize is that we need the community, we need to work with the supervisor's office to have some locations where people can be trained. Because when they did this in New York City or New York a few years ago, 10% of the people passed it, 90% failed. And so if we can get like Mount Vernon High School or West Potomac, the gym, and get and we can have the DMV can bring over 5 or 6 their staff, and you can have people like suitably spread out so that there's wearing masks and everything. We can get all the those folks who have old licenses. I think Kathy, was it pre-2004 that we used to do this? We used to have licenses for undocumented. So if they still have them, even though they're way out of date, that can speed up the process for them. They don't have to go through the testing again. As well as if they have an out-of-state license that's also expired, like from Maryland or DC or anywhere else. So the early, we want to get people educated so that they pass these tests and get them through as fast as possible. Now, when the DMV does this, they're not going to say, "Oh, all of you undocumented show up at Mount Vernon for training." It's not going to. It'll be open to everybody, right? So. And that way ICE also isn't alerted to it. And I think as soon as we have the new inauguration in January 20th, I think it is, and we're all counting the days, that whole issue is probably going to go away anyway. So that's a good, but we're all very cognizant of this, but it is a really important, it's really important. And
So if you get one of these licenses, then can you get Virginia license plates on your car?
Yeah, it is. It's a recognized, it's a recognized Virginia driver's license. It has a different name because it's not like a standard driver's license that you or I are able to get, but you have all it's like the privileges of having that license is the same. And you have to get a new one I think it's every 2 years. And then the other thing, the important thing we were able to do too is like it looks like a regular driver's license on the front, and the back it just notes that it is a driver privilege.
Okay.
It is. It's an ID. Now, one thing that we didn't realize that Delegate Guzman is, I believe, Delegate Tran, you can correct me if I'm wrong, has this bill. But there are people who don't want to drive and don't need to drive, but do want a license to have it's an ID card essentially. And we did not include that in the bill last year, but Delegate Guzman's got that same bill. So for those people who are, maybe they're too old to drive or never wanted to learn to drive or whatever, don't want to be involved, but they do want the ID because it can help you with check cashing. It can help you with voting. I'm not voting, of course, you can't vote because but it can help you with a lot of other things. So that is going to be, we're trying to pass that bill this year, and I think we will. So that'll clean that up. That brings it, that's a loophole.
Okay.
But I just to kind of put a fine point on this particular issue. Sorry, I got to plug in my computer before I lose everybody. Put a fine point on this issue. It's just that, we do have community or like advocacy groups are working with community members. They are currently hosting sessions so that people can practice and learn together to be prepared for the driver's the knowledge test. And they're also working to make sure that people understand what the data privacy issues are so that every single person can make the best decision for themselves, right? Some people are really excited and are looking forward to getting this card. Other people are going to wait until we are able to address the privacy issues, to have stronger protections. So everybody's making that decision for themselves, but it's really great to hear, people are using Zoom and such to come together to study. So hopefully we'll have a better pathway than others.
Okay. That's good. I know in Lee, I don't know if this is still in effect, but they were cracking down on Maryland license plates that were parked around the apartment buildings because everybody had their car and their license registered in
Yeah.
Maryland. So is that still in effect? That would, if they got their Virginia credentials, I guess they could avoid that. I don't know how much that's being enforced right now. Who's on from Lee? Deborah, do you know? Can't hear you.
Mary,
I didn't hear. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, it was about the Maryland license plates were kind of getting cracked down on around the apartments in Lee, and that a lot of those were owned by people who are undocumented, who went to Maryland to get their documentation for their car.
Right.
So this would solve that issue. They could get a Virginia license and a Virginia license plate, right?
Correct. Yeah. We know, we know many constituents go to Maryland to get their license, and we see that a lot at our food distributions where we have, you know, a lot of cars coming through there, at least 1,000 cars. And I would say at least 50%, if not 60, have Maryland tags on any given day. So I think that's something that people have done repeatedly. And
But they may live here. They may be living in Virginia, but they
But
can't.
that would work around.
Correct.
We passed this legislation, so that's not necessary anymore.
Right.
yeah, exactly. One thing we have heard just recently, I think there's a couple of scams kind of happening where people are asking people who are a little bit wary of the process, and they're trying to get education, which is really good of what's going on right now. And the seminar that was last night is really helpful. But we've had a few constituents reach out concerned about other constituents who have had people approach them and charge them like, pay me $500 and we'll navigate this process for you. And so it's just, we're really trying to get the word out, and thank you to Diego. We're trying to, we talked about this to try to let people know that you don't need someone to navigate this process for you, and that it's going to be a simple process once it's done. And, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah,
talk to Christina about that? She's really hot on people doing that. She said people will do that with immigrants on a lot of different issues and charge them a lot of money for non-existent, unnecessary legal services.
Yeah.
I just want to make really clear also, when you go and take the driver knowledge test, you can request it in, I think it's like 25 or 35 languages. So, there's I think it's accessible in that way for folks who might not be English proficient. And that's, I think, really important for the community to know in terms of, it's really disturbing to hear about folks trying to prey on individuals who want to go through and get the test, their card. And so, yeah. A lot of things are going to be accessible in other languages once they make their appointment.
And state law does address notary fraud. Actually, Delegate Tran's predecessor had the bill a couple years ago to
Senator Evans' bill.
Oh, Senator Evan too. Well, I was looking at the House, so sorry.
Yeah, scenario fraud. Yeah.
So that there is legal recourse if any community members experience that now.
Well, that just goes to show you how important this is. If people are willing to pay $500 or whatever, this is really going to change things. I'm very excited about it. I mean, we wanted to do this for years, but that's what happens when you change seats in the General Assembly.
Yeah, well, this is really great. I'm
I
really
put in that bill in 2007.
Yeah, Senator Evans been fighting a good fight.
You're amazing, Senator Evans. Sorry, didn't mean to not include
That's,
you.
no worries. No worries. I'm
Bill,
talking
well,
about
in
the
your-
driver's
in your big-
license bill. It's been a long time.
Yeah. But I really appreciate the opportunity to chat about it. I have a constituent meeting at 4:30, so I'm going to hop off then. But thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for bringing that up. Another thing that's taking effect that we should, I think, thank Adam and others for is this new anti-discrimination right, where you cannot discriminate people for paying their rent with any source of income, including the housing vouchers. And was that the only new discrimination category, or was there something else? I forgot.
You talking
Yes,
about
sir.
paying rent?
Yeah, I'm talking about paying rent with vouchers, with HUD vouchers.
Right.
Yeah, that's been put into the state protected classes bill and also in the county, saying now that you cannot, landlord cannot discriminate against a tenant for paying for the source of payment. It's their source of income when they apply or pay their rent in an apartment. And that could be a real game changer in Fairfax County. They haven't really publicized it very much yet, but a lot of landlords will not accept vouchers, especially in certain neighborhoods, and they, never have, and now they must. But we need to get that information out to the landlords and to the tenants who have vouchers, so they know that it's not legal anymore to discriminate against vouchers. And I've heard some places that landlords are raising their rent to avoid that, because there's some limits on what the voucher will pay. But I don't know if that's happening around here yet. I think it's still really new and not many people know about it. But thank you guys for that. So what's coming up that this term for Adam and Paul? What do you see as coming up as your important areas of emphasis and things that relate to our particular issues here in Route 1?
Paul,
Go ahead.
you want to go first?
You have the seniority.
I'll just mention a few bills. This is a short session and we're limited in how many bills we can put in. But in terms of tenants' rights, I have a bill for unlawful eviction to allow for a private cause of action if a landlord tries to evict someone outside of the legal system. And that I also passed a bill during a special session dealing with repayment plans, that before someone could be evicted, they had to be offered a repayment plan if they miss a month's rent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also working on my more complicated bill is to legalize marijuana. I've got a bill to repeal the Virginia Marriage Amendment, which isn't specific to Route 1 at all. And also, again, not specific to Route 1, but banning private prisons in Virginia. We have one private prison left, and a variety of other bills dealing with elections and other things.
Okay. Yeah, the payment plan was also worked into the extension of the mortgage, I guess it went into the funding bill. It was worked into the how to keep from getting evicted bill. And tell us about that, both of you, how long that goes on and how does that protect people from getting evicted?
I don't know how long the moratorium against eviction went on, if it goes past December 31st, but this is for people who fall behind a month in their rent, that they can divide out their the remainder of their rent that's due into the same number of months that are left on the lease, no more than, I think it might have been 6 months or longer, no more than 6 months or so. I did that with Delegate Cia Price from the House.
Paul?
Yeah. It's just, that's a big game changer. But to answer your first question, my aide Maria Salgado is on. She may know the answer better than we do. That's why we have our aides. They do all the hard work. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, if you're listening, that it goes on until the pandemic's over, or 60 days after the pandemic, the emergencies, the governor's emergency for the pandemic. I think a lot of those bills go into effect at that point.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 60 days after the state of emergency is over.
Well, my bill goes till July 1st, 2021, the repayment plans. But Paul's referring to the more important, you're talking about the eviction moratorium?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And we've got a lot. Let me just, Senator Eben just mention the fact that we have a very severe bill limit, and we've never had such a small number. On the Senate side, they're doing 12. We're doing 7 on the House side. Last year, just to give you an idea, I introduced 27, which was about in the middle of the pack for most Democrats. And it's very difficult to only do 7. I have 25 bills that I've drafted, and I'm trying to cut them down to the 7 most important ones. And sometimes they're not. Some of them are time sensitive, more time sensitive than other ones. I mean, one I'm working on is to increase the amount of a debtor's wage that's exempt from garnishment because last year and fantastic news, of course, and it goes into effect May 1, the minimum wage starts to go up. We have it laddered up from every year for the next 4 years. So it gets up to $15, but it goes up to from $7.25, I think, to $9.40. Is that correct on May 1, Adam? And
It was 33% from where it was. I can't remember if that was 940 or not.
something like that. It's a good number, but the garnishment law is tied to the federal minimum wage, which is obviously lower. So we want to protect people's wages from the garnishment. So that'll help a lot of folks. And I'm working with Virginia Poverty Law Center on that bill. I've got some other one. I think the other thing that to be said, because it's a 7 bill limit on the House side, what we're trying to do is we're trying to is kind of work in tandem with other delegates. And if we have a topic or something that could possibly be put in another bill, normally we wouldn't want to do this because we want to make sure our bill gets passed, and we don't want the whole bill to go down and take our bill out. But we're going to have a bunch of omnibus bills. For example, the bill I passed last year, but it got killed in the Senate. In fact, in Senator Ebbins' committee, and he was the only one to help me, I think, which was to get the free postage on absentee ballot. When you're getting an absentee ballot, that it comes back to you when you send it in, you have free postage. It has a BRT or a BRM reply envelope and insignia there, so you don't have to pay or stamp or whatever. Which, I mean, even 55 cents to me, and I think to most people, that's considered like a poll tax, right? I mean, we should not have any kind of hoops for people to jump through, even to go find a stamp to get their ballot back. So we passed that, but the Senate, they put a reenactment clause on it, which is a fancy way of saying it was killed, but it doesn't. It means I just have to bring the bill back to pass it, but I'm not bringing it back because I only have 7 bills. But I did find Schuyler Van Valkenburg, who's a colleague of mine. He has a bill that has a bunch of election-related topic or issues in there, like those drop boxes, making those permanent and expanding the drop boxes is one of the things that's going to be on his bill. So he's agreed very nicely to put my free postage into his bill. So hopefully we pass his bill and amend it out. So that's the kind of thing we're doing. We're being creative. Also, the budget process and the budget. Let me just mention the bills have already had to have been introduced for drafting. So if you have a great idea, it's too late, unfortunately, to do anything about it legislatively. However, there may be a bill that's out there that we could amend, and certainly that process is always open to us during the whole session. But the second part of it is, if it's a budget amendment, sometimes you can kind of legislate through the budget. Now that means that anything you pass, like we did do the free postage through the budget last year. The governor actually put it into his budget during the reconvene or the special session. But that's only good for that year that it's done. So it was just for that. So anything we do now would be just to the end of the budget cycle and at the end of June. So it's not a long-term fix. It's just a one year by one year. But there are things, for example, I have a budget amendment that I'm working with Christy Mara and Jonathan on money to create a website that would Oregon has one, and if I can find a link, I'll mention it. But what you would do is all the mobile homes in the Commonwealth would be listed on this website. The location, the condition, the owners. It would have a lot of detail about the mobile homes, if they're about to be sold, if there's any legal trouble. So it's going to cost it's going to cost a little bit of money to create the website and to get that up. But really, once it's up and running, it shouldn't really be a big, it shouldn't be any kind of expense. I think the administration recognizes that they can use, some help from staff that they already currently have. So it's a one-time budget request to get it set up, but then it will be there forevermore. So
Okay.
that's a good example of
And
something.
the idea of that is that if a mobile home park comes up for sale, a nonprofit or co-op or something might be able to come in and purchase it for the residents to keep it as affordable housing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one positive about it. I mean, there's a lot of different things around that theme, but just having it, I mean, no one knows right now where they are. I mean, there's no registration process. There's other states that have mobile home legislation that's much more robust than we have. I mean, I feel like the mobile homes are a great source of low income housing, of affordable housing that is, for starter homes and for families that can't afford a single family home in a community, but do want to have that kind of sense of community. And we have at least 5, I think, in my district, in the 44th district along Richmond Highway. When I was a kid, we used to have a few more, and I hate to see them go. But so that is, I know you want to talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you want to to that right now.
Yeah, go ahead, talk about it. Because what do you see that could be done maybe this year, maybe next year in terms of legislation? I've talked to some people about it, and I guess there's one bill that's looking for a sponsor that would ask cities and counties to incorporate them into their comprehensive planning as affordable housing. But there's not too much bold, brave stuff that I've been able to uncover.
I mean, that's a good example. That's a bill that is in Fairfax County. I don't think it would be necessary because we could probably get our supervisors to do that anyway. Maybe I'm not sure if they need that tool. I mean, if they have to have it legislatively, in the statute or not. But yeah, that's a bill that's out there. I don't know I think Delegate Torian has drafted that up.
Torian drafted it, yeah.
So I'm not sure. We're all like trying to figure out how many bills we can, which ones we're going to be able to end up doing. I mean, it's crazy because the administration at this point in time usually comes to the delegates and senators and says, hey, I've got a bill I need you to carry. And we have to tell them, no, I'm sorry, we don't have.
Who set that limit on you?
The speaker.
Oh.
In charge.
Speaker in the Senate Rules Committee.
Okay. So do you guys have any ideas on state level stuff that can be done to help keep the mobile home parks as affordable housing, maybe in the future when you have more bills?
Well,
what would you like us to do? Do you have thoughts beyond the one that you had mentioned about zoning?
Yeah, generally the talk is to kind of encourage nonprofits or co-ops to buy the mobile home parks. It's sort of the idea that, yeah, these mobile home park owners, they bought them as a business, and that's fine. They can run them as a business and make their money and then sell it as a business. But what they're doing is they're selling just the land, and then they're coming in and they want to clear cut all the families down like they were trees to clear the land for future development. And we're saying there's something wrong with that because these mobile homes don't have wheels anymore. You can't just move them around. There's no provision anywhere in the state or in the county to actually compensate people for the investment they made in these mobile homes, which can be, $50,000, $60,000. If they can't move that home, they have to kind of leave it for the bulldozer.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah. There's all this talk about rehousing people in apartments, but what about their $50,000 and what about their community? And we're saying, that there's transitory development and then there's equitable development, and you really have to make some kind of carve out for communities of color that have been established in certain areas for generations, and to just come around and throw everybody out and build 8-story apartment buildings still doesn't seem quite right to me. I grew up in Detroit where they built freeways through all the black neighborhoods and threw everybody out. And this just seems like that kind of thing again, even though it's a little more energy efficient. So we're trying to look at a way to keep people,
Mary,
right now.
Mary, last year I did pass a bill. It got watered down. It was your bill, in fact, that you gave to me,
Right.
to get $10,000 for moving, for being able to move the trailers. I mean, it got watered down to $2,500, and I had to get it up. I was able to get it up to $3,500 just for Northern Virginia, because I told them that I need to, but $3,500 is barely enough money to move your trailer because they're not that mobile. I remember, and you probably remember this too, Mary, back in, I want to say it's in the 90s when George Bush, the first George Bush, was president. We had a huge mobile home park where the Walmart is now at the intersection of near Sherwood Hall Lane, right next to the Costco.
Yeah.
And it was a big one there that the Walmart had bought the land and kind of surprised everybody. And I remember Supervisor Highland worked with Christian Relief Services where I was working at the time, and United Community Ministries, and the Walmart, and was able to extract from Walmart $10,000 per family, per mobile home, to be able to help them to move those mobile homes. And then we got money from the county to some relocation money to help relocate everybody. And I'm now going totally by my memory, which is getting faultier as I get older. But I remember like 50% of the people ended up having to be moved to like Prince William and Stafford County, even back then. But we had more mobile homes. The rest of them, about half of those we were able to put into places like Willie Nightingale and Ray's and places like that. But then the other half, we put them into properties like that Christian Relief Services owned, and in the Northern Virginia, in the Mount Vernon area, Lee area, Springfield. And within 6 to 12 months, most of those tenants that were in the apartments that we moved them into condos, they left and they went back to mobile homes in Prince William County or whenever they saw one open up, because they really, they chose, that's how they wanted to live in a mobile home park. They did not want to be in an apartment complex with, going up and down, 6, 7 stories, or
Right.
in the garden apartment. So it's it's a lifestyle that people choose. It's a great way, especially in COVID days now, to not have to be in an elevator with other people in an apartment complex, but to actually have your own little yard and your own your home and community. There's a sense of community too that a lot of these, I've talked to many people over there, and like Audubon, they've lived there 15 to 25 years.
Right.
And they love it there. And some of them could afford to move on, but why should they? And so I want to do all we can to promote, mobile homes as a option of affordable housing around the whole Commonwealth. And also, I'll say that in Virginia, we have mobile home manufacturers down in the state that are building it. So there's an economy there that that could benefit in Virginia with jobs, everything, by buying these newer mobile homes, which do have good R value and better, are
Right. Energy efficient. They don't burst into flames every winter. They're more safe.
So it's really about the land cost. When you think about a mobile homeowner who has owned this property, the land, for God knows how long, right? They've paid everything off, and they're getting $1,000 or so per pad, and they have 100 pads. That's $100,000 a month, right? I'm not good at math, but I think that's it. So you're talking $1.2 million a year, and maybe it costs them maybe 200, 1,000 of that goes to their overhead, which is probably not even that much, because the roads places are potholed and everything, so they're not doing that great a job. And so they're making $1 million a year. It's a cash cow, and it's A, hard for them to want to sell it, or B, the land becomes so valuable that they're able to sell for some other. So we need to figure out, there are other ways, like creating a trust fund for mobile home parks, where you can help communities when they're about to lose, when a buyer is going to come in there and redevelop it. But I think the most important thing is to do something about the redevelopment to make it a little bit more difficult, or so that you can keep these people in their homes there, and they don't have to be, they don't have to be moved and leave that area where they've lived for so many years, and their friends and family are all around. So that's my concern. And I'm not saying that the park owner shouldn't get compensated. It should be. They should be able to make a healthy profit. But I think we got to take a holistic approach to this, and I feel like we will, and we continue to do that. I'm not on the housing committee, but it comes through general laws. I'm on general laws, so we'll have we'll have opportunity to do more on this in the future and to build on. A lot of times you get your bill in there for $3,500 for moving expenses, and then the next year you try to make it 5,000. So we'll keep working.
Yeah, Jonathan says it costs 10,000 to move one of those homes now these days.
But you think
So
about
keep,
we got $10,000 back in the 90s, and it's 2020.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. So yeah, we got it. It's a lot of fronts. Those laws are so old. They all date back to the days when the mobile homes had wheels. And now that they're more permanent, they don't make any sense. So thank you for that. Thank you for working on that. Let me ask about the budget. I don't see Delegate Sickles. What do you guys think is going to happen? You can do budget amendments this year, but it's not a real budget year. Do you think we'll get more for the tenants and the rent relief? And is the state going to kick in on that, those kind of things?
I think we still have not expended all the money that the federal government had given us. And I think if there's seen as a need, the governor would redirect. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, the governor is going to present his adjustments to the caboose budget for the 2021 budget. And we'll see.
Yeah, so go online tomorrow, listen to him, but then also go online and look at the budget and dig deep into it and see what we're all going to be doing that, and looking to see what's in there, because he'll give a brief overview, but there's going to be a lot of specific stuff in there. I think it's going to be a good caboose budget under the circumstances. It's we're in an economic crisis right now. The good news is, in weird ways, that some things are doing better than others. For example, 95% of the highway traffic is back, to pre-COVID levels. We're at 95% of pre-COVID levels. So the gas tax that we're using for transportation is bounced back. It's important. But then Metro is at 5% usage, and so
Okay.
So Ramada is really in trouble, and we're part of the support for them too. So there's all kinds of imbalances going on in different economies. One weird thing, my wife went to the post office today, and they said, if you don't get your package in today or tomorrow, forget about it getting to anywhere by Christmas, because they're overwhelmed because everybody's doing it, purchasing online and not to the stores. And then you got the fact that FedEx is now doing nothing but getting the COVID vaccine out. And so people are going.
That's right. That's right. All the trucks are carrying vaccine. Wow. Well, that's good. That's better than presents.
Mary, the budget that Paul's referring to, what's going to happen is this is the 2-year budget. We had a 2-year budget that we passed last year. Is that right, Paul? And then we did that. I finalized it. I think it was in May. Then we unallotted a lot of the items that we wanted to spend money on, and we put a few back in the budget that we passed in our special session. And now what we're doing is we're just adjusting that second year budget. The good news is that revenue collection had been up in recent months, and that's over, now being COVID, up over last year when there was not even COVID at this time. And so we'll be hoping to add items that were supposed to be in last year's budget, like student counselor ratios in schools and that sort of thing.
One thing we were proposing, tell me if you think this has any chance, is to restore the Affordable Housing Trust Fund budget, at least to where it was, or maybe more, but then use, if we needed more emergency rent housing mortgage funding to take it from the emergency reserve budget. Are they willing to tap into that at all? I can't hear.
Well, sorry, Maria may want to jump in here. The we unallotted, or the governor really unallotted, froze some of the housing trust fund. Last year we increased the housing trust fund to the highest ever. I want to say 50 million, maybe it was 80 million. It was a lot, right? I mean, usually it's like 5 or something. So finally we had a housing trust fund that was worthy of its name. And you leverage from that money, you're able to get like 13 to 1 on the dollar of leveraging.
Right.
So it's really super beneficial. And it was always, I remember for years it was less than the Fairfax County Housing Trust Fund. It was just one county, right? But and I think that a lot of that got at least I want to say 50 million is the number that's just jumping to my head, but I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me.
Right. He put it back up, but then he said, yeah, but you can take the emergency rent relief out of that budget. And that budget was supposed to be more for building new affordable housing. So it's like we're now regressing on the future. We're not building as much affordable housing as we should be.
No, I think it was just more of a flexibility move, but yeah, I mean, we need to get more money in there. It takes a while to, for these big projects to spend it as well. But I mean, it's all Adam, has the revenue forecast come out yet? I think that's going to happen tonight or something, right? I mean,
I don't know the timing of that. I just know tomorrow's the day we get the budget.
Right. So
Okay.
A lot predicated on how we're doing on revenue forecasting for this quarter, and then of course the governor, he presents this budget tomorrow, and our amendments, some of the amendments we may have in mind, the governor may have already done those amendments, right? He may have included something like, a lot of times, because I know that Senator Eben and I, we've communicated with him our priorities, and we're hoping he puts it in his budget. Because it's a lot easier to defend his budget than it is to get something into his budget and then defend it. So so we'll see how that all plays out. We'll all be looking to see if our stuff got in. If it didn't, then we'll fight to get it in. But then we have to figure out what's going to, where the spending, or where we're going to find the money to pay for it. So that's the other side of it. There is a big pot of money I'm trying to open up. And that is I don't know if you guys ever noticed, and you don't see them too much in Northern Virginia, but if you go out into a C store, a little consumer, little market or bodega or someplace, they now have maybe a couple or 3 or 4 machines in the corner that are like little look like slot machines, but they're called skill games. And last year they came in illegally. They were never legalized in Virginia. And this time last year, before session, we started talking about them. And during session, David Bulova had a bill to ban them. And we banned them, even though we had a lot of testimony from these owners, even some 7-Elevens and truck stops and little shops all over Virginia that were like, and restaurants too, especially restaurants. And we go, we need these machines. There's just skill games. They're not slot machines. They don't pay out a lot of money. You don't lose a lot of money. But it brings in customers, and we need the custom. And we were like, yeah, but we don't really want gambling to be all over the place. We're worried about it, about the negative effects of that. Plus, we have 4 casinos that are being built in Norfolk, Portsmouth, Danville, and Bristol, and a 5th one possibly in Richmond, that are investing billions of dollars. And we don't think it's fair that you guys would compete with them. And then COVID came. And so we defeated the bill, and then COVID came, and the governor vetoed the bill, the ban on them, and made it so that they're allowed 1 more year. And he also stuck a $1,200 per machine tax on them, and basically said, once you get the machines out there, you have to pay the $1,200. Well, it's come out to be around $100 million, plus or minus 10 million, I think, just a total round number. And the restaurants and everybody haven't really been able to take super advantage of it because of people aren't going out. but it still have been helpful. And when the governor did that, he said, this is 1 year only, I promise 1 year. And you know, it's because of the COVID situation. Well, COVID is worse now than when the governor said that, right? And these stores are really hurting, these restaurants really hurting. And so I have a bill to give it another year and to knock it down from 100% of what's out there now to 90%. So it's a phase out ban. So it's still a ban, but it gives us 1 more year. It gives all those grocery stores and restaurants another year of having that income and bringing in customers. And hopefully by the, you know, COVID will be over, you know, at least we'll open up in the next 6 months, much more. So they'll get more customers in there, and that will give them a shot in the arm. And it's really a COVID related economic boost bill that I'm trying to get through the House and Senate, and hopefully the governor will not veto. But I do, I mean, you know, the money will be helpful. And I also moved up the percentage to the localities from 12% of the taxable income. So they were getting 12 million or so to 33 million. So that will be a big boost to Northern Virginia too, to Fairfax County, to every jurisdiction. And I think
So we'll give you some ideas on how to spend that. That'd be great.
Exactly. There you go.
Delegate Sickles is waiting to be let in the meeting.
Okay, Larissa, are you
Let him
there?
in.
Larissa? They got 3 people waiting, I think. And I'm not in control of this. Larissa is. Larissa?
She may have stepped away or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
We could do a workaround. We could have him, we could get him on our phone or something. We can put it up there.
Yeah, we've got Sickles and Serval are on in the meeting room. Show self-view. Show. I don't see anything here what gives me any control over this.
Should
Mary,
I
if
text
you
her?
type her number in there, I can call her.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I just joined after I was having another conversation. I just saw that people needed to be admitted. They're admitted.
Yeah.
And Mary, I just gave you
Okay, sorry,
co-host
guys.
authority.
Okay. Okay, so good.
I'm
Who have we got? Say hello. Scott,
Pam,
you're
hey,
here, Pam?
it's Pam.
Mark?
I'm here. I couldn't get in.
Hello,
Who's that?
Serval.
Serval, but somebody said I can't get in. I guess if you can say that, you're in, right? Who's
Oh,
on the phone?
No, I said I couldn't get in by either. I've been on waiting, so I'm glad to be in. This is Pam.
Okay, hi,
This
Pam.
is the other,
Good.
this is the other Pam. I'm glad to be in too.
Okay, and who else is on the phone? I see another phone.
I see Sickles' name.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. Can you talk, or are you on the road now? It looks like he's on the road.
Looks like he disappeared in the dark.
He's in a dark car. It got dark out. All right, well, we'll look for him. Hi, Scott. Sorry you had to wait. You missed Paul's great talk about why we need mobile home parks in Route 1.
No problem.
So we would like to get from you and from Mark what you are expecting in this next session and what you're pushing that will be of interest to the Route 1 community and how we can help. You know, guys, keep, you know, when you got a bill that's of interest to this community, you can always, even though we didn't put out an agenda to push as a list, we're certainly willing to help with different bills that relate to this area and help you get people to testify or send letters or do that kind of thing. So keep in touch with us as the bills merge and grow and progress if you need some support. Let's see, where did Mark go? Now he's on
I'm
the
here.
phone.
He's here, he's there.
Yeah,
Mark
I'm on the
Sickles?
phone. I don't know how to get the camera to work.
That's good.
But,
That's all right. You wanna you had a short time with us, but you want to tell us about the money? You're our money guy, the budget, and anything else you want to say?
So we made a whole lot of improvements in this
interim budget that we did that finished in October, but the budget's coming out tomorrow. I'm sure somebody said
Right.
that earlier. It is, we had a preview of it today. Didn't get into too many details, but I do believe that the governor is really investing in healthcare and human resources. We have a broadband deployment initiative that's important because of COVID, and housing and eviction relief. The eviction
Good.
relief process wasn't going very well earlier this year. We did change how it operates at the interim session, and now it's really being used well now. But that money will be gone on December 30th, and hopefully the federal government will do another one that will have a housing component to it, but we'll have to see. And we're going to continue to do housing, and particularly, we haven't done that much as a state over the years. So this is a new thing to gear up, like we've been trying to gear up. We've only been in power now for 11 months. This is our 12th month, and, we just can't, the government doesn't have capacity to turn it on like we need it to turn on in the housing area. But that's something that those of us from Northern Virginia will be working on year to year to build the program. And there's particular focus that I have on making sure that enough of the housing is going to permanent supportive housing for people with serious mental illness. First, we've got money in the budget for transition care and discharge planning, because we have people in our state mental hospitals that could live in the community with proper supports. Everybody knows that, but we just don't have the money. We don't have the supports. Part of the game, it's like whack-a-mole, because part of the game in getting supports that we need in the community is paying providers enough to want to be in the business to provide supports. And so this year we tried to focus on the compensation, getting the compensation up. We're not a good payer. DC and Maryland pay a lot more than we do. We're lucky to have individuals that are committed to be personal care providers and work in people's houses, and in some cases visiting to make sure people are staying on their medications, things like that. I went this sign outside of the Panda Express up in Route 1 near the Walmart. They're paying $14 an hour for a cook and $12 an hour for everyone else who works inside there, and that's more than we pay. So that's our competition, and we've got to get our compensation up. And for a lot of these programs, the federal government pays for half or more if it's in the Medicaid space. And so we're leaving money on the table. Virginia always has. We've not been a generous state. But I think it's fair to say there's a lot of people focused on getting more uniform, consistent mental health providers, mental health services across the state. It's very splotchy. It's Swiss cheese. And we have better services here than other places. If you have a complaint about our area, we're really lucky to have Fairfax County, in our case, putting $122 million in their CSB. Part of it's for serious mental illness, but part of it's for substance abuse, of course, and also for the IDDD population.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big challenge. We're 23 or 24% of the budget in our subcommittee, on our appropriations subcommittee, and I think that we're in a position to get more into that. But there's a lot of other needs in K-12, particularly now, in higher education. Those three things are our highest priority. Trying to keep tuition down so our students, when they graduate, are not saddled with years and years worth of student loan debt that keeps them from buying new houses. We have the oldest cohort now in our lifetimes of buying the first house. That first house purchases is by people that are older and older and older because they can't save 20%. They can't save 20% to put down on a house, and essentially you have to have 20% these days to get a mortgage. And so everything's tied into everything else, and we're doing our best. It's great to work with my colleagues in this area. You know, we all kind of have the same goals in the healthcare area. We're trying to make sure our providers here are good and filling in, ultimately someday to get universal coverage and have everybody with a healthcare home to turn to and a payer that so that providers don't have to charge other people more to cross subsidize people who can't pay. And that's the way our system is set up now. Now, Medicaid expansion took a big whack at that, but we still have legal permanent residents here that cannot do not qualify for Medicaid under federal rules until they've been here 5 years. So and buying insurance is not affordable for many low-income workers, even here legally. And then, of course, we have the whole undocumented community that we've got to take care of when they show up to the hospital or other places needing care. So I would like to get a more uniform approach with time to helping the undocumented people living here to get routine healthcare services. It's so much cheaper to have to catch healthcare conditions when they start and not wait until things conflate into much more serious conditions. And Virginia has done a pretty good job in the last 20 years of getting our children that from poor families that they make too much to qualify for Medicaid, but too little to to buy insurance to get in our famous program, which is the Virginia version of the Children's Health Insurance Program from the Clinton years. And it's always, we are going to do something in this session to enhance our outreach efforts to people that qualify for insurance or for Medicaid that aren't signed up yet. And it's very cost effective to take care of children, to make sure they're getting their immunizations and they're getting basic care when they're young. They're more resilient if you can provide basic care and make sure their parents are bringing them in to see the pediatrician. That it is not that expensive. The other characterization of our programs now is we've gone to managed care for all of our Medicaid essentially. There's a few programs that are left that are still fee for service, but most of it's even our most fragile citizens that qualify for a nursing home, skilled nursing facility, they are now assigned to a provider, a healthcare provider through the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Program, the CCC Plus. We had other Medicaid recipients, particularly children, in managed care for a while, but then we started this program a couple years ago. There have been a lot of complaints about it. I hear about it a lot, particularly because some of the providers are getting cut off, and Medicaid is happy with it because they think that the MCOs are doing a good job of making sure the proper care is given to the exact right care is given to the person, instead of when they used to run the program themselves and be a direct provider. They are now reliant on 6, really 5.5 managed care organizations to implement their program. So you're still in transition mode on that. And my sister's been trying to sign up our 81-year-old cousin who qualifies, and she's had a hell of a time, doing it. I've tried to help, but she's got the power of attorney and has been working on more time, I guess, to work on it. But she said it's been a real headache. He's going to be in the CCC Plus program, and you have to get in that first and then qualify for Medicaid second, and they run you through the hoops.
That's always great when you're 81.
Right. Right. My great aunt adopted him 79 years ago when he was 2 years old. Yeah. Anyway.
I hope you can sort that out. I know that's really hard when you're old or when you're sick or whatever to deal with that kind of
No kidding.
complications.
And my sister has a background in health administration too, so she's having a hard time. I'm gonna have her write up her total experience with this after it's over. He really needs to get in this program where he can get somebody looking out after. The good thing in theory about managed care is that you'll have a person assigned to you to take care of your needs and making sure you're getting the proper care and not going to the hospital for something that you can avoid the hospital for, and also to help keep you in your home longer too. That's the ultimate objective, to keep you out of an institution.
Okay, great. Scott, how about you? You want to tell us? I went to Scott's breakfast where he gives a long slideshow about all the things going on here and there, and that was really excellent. Can you narrow down to our little corridor and tell us some things that relate to this area?
Sure. So a couple things. First of all, I've been trying to work out some kind of a compromise with Northern Virginia localities on affordable housing. I had a bill that I carried last session that would require that 10% of all residences constructed within half a mile of a metro station have to be affordable for people who are 50% of area median income or higher. And that would be either existing metro stations or future metro stations. And given that we have a future metro station on the comp plan in Hybla Valley and one in Beacon Mall, that would also apply in the Route 1 corridor. It would also help us meet our no net loss goals that the Federal Transit Administration would require to get our FTA grant to build the bus rapid transit and eventually the yellow line. However, I've been unable to reach any kind of compromise with the localities, especially Fairfax, but some of the other localities are also busy revising their affordable housing standards, and they're very open to looking at some kind of a baseline requirement for every Northern Virginia locality close to metros. There's 5 jurisdictions that have metro stations: Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, and Falls Church and Loudoun, and hopefully Prince William in the future, knock on wood. But there's plenty of willingness to build affordable housing away from metro, but the land costs around metro stations are so exorbitant that a lot of localities don't want to spend the money that's necessary, or I should say, well, mainly, again, most of the resistance I'm getting is from Fairfax, but a little bit from others. Most of them don't want to invest the kind of taxpayer dollars it takes to get to 50% of AMI for housing next to a metro station. And I feel very strongly that everybody ought to be able to afford to live next to a metro station, or at least have the opportunity, and not just a bunch of wealthy yuppies, which is basically what metro is doing right now, or what metro is causing right now, I should say, if you just look at the market. So anyway, if I can't work out some kind of compromise on that, that at least most of the localities are okay with, I'm probably going to punt on that until next session. Secondly,
most of the things, they trade off the lower income units for additional density. Is that part of your bill? Or
yeah, but they all tell me that's not sufficient to get to the numbers that we need to get for purposes of this of this income level. They say that just the amount that getting down to 50% of AMI, that additional density just isn't enough. It takes actual cash. And in DC, what happens is the government actually buys the land and then sells it to the developer for $1. They put real dollars in the game and not just some additional density. And DC right now has an affordable housing goal of 10%. They're trying to get to 20% of units. Montgomery County's at 12%. Arlington and Alexandria at 10%. Fairfax just isn't there. And if there's people from Fairfax on the phone, they'll probably get on the call right now. They'll probably get on and argue with me. But
Fairfax is shooting
It's-
for 8%.
Well, it's 8%, but they're looking at 60% of AMI, not 50. And
Right.
the big difference between 50 and 60. And so, anyway, that's something I'm probably going to have to work on over the next year, but we'll see. I'm trying to get a compromise worked out with some of the localities. If I can get there, I'll put the bill in. Second thing is I'm carrying a bill to expand juvenile court jurisdiction to determine special immigrant juvenile status to age 21. SIJS is a specific status which allows a child who comes to the United States who has been found to be neglected or abandoned legal status. But in order to get it, they have to go in front of a juvenile court judge who has to make certain findings. I carried a bill 2 years ago with Delegate Marcus Simon, which restored the authority of our courts to do that. It had been taken away due to a Court of Appeals decision in 2017. But what many practitioners have found is that there are children who miss their window to do it before their 18th birthday. And there's a lot of other kids that live up to age, that are up to age 21 that could benefit from it. And in Maryland, they expanded their jurisdiction up to age 21. And so I'm putting in a bill to do that for Virginia, and also to require that all guardians ad litem be trained to screen their children clients to see if they're eligible for SIJS, so they don't miss that opportunity to get them that legal status. So I'm putting that bill in. I'm also carrying a bill to authorize state-level class action lawsuits in Virginia. Virginia is one of only 2 states in the United States of America where you cannot bring a class action lawsuit in state court. It's us in Mississippi. And the reason I bring that up on this call is because many of the people who benefit from class action lawsuits are low-income individuals who, they get screwed on a $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, $100 at a time basis. And often people like that can't receive justice unless their claims can be pooled and they bring suit as a group instead of one at a time, where lawyers find it's uneconomic to bring a case. And so class action lawsuits have been one of the most effective remedies in this country for sort of leveling the playing field and bringing justice to people who are on the short end of the stick on transactions like this. And then the last thing, which I think is important, is the governor tomorrow, I think, is going to announce he's parking or he's putting a big chunk of money in his budget to help redo the computer and human infrastructure we have to do a much bigger expungement program, or what some people call record sealing. It's actually very manpower and computer intensive to take criminal records and seal them. And so every time we try and expand people's remedies, it costs taxpayers a lot of dollars to do it. And there's a lot of things we can do with computers to reduce the amount of manpower that's necessary. But I'm carrying a bill, and I'm working with Delegate Herring to try and come up with a way that we can really expand Virginia's either expungement or record sealing process, depending on what you call it, in a much more robust way that's consistent with the way 30 to 40 other states do it in the United States of America. The House was very focused on an automatic expungement program last year that involved a narrow list of crimes. What we're proposing in the Senate is a much bigger list of crimes, but a petition-based program with a much smaller automatic program for traffic offenses and class 3-4 misdemeanors. But either way, it's our hope that we can get some kind of a broader expungement record sealing deal in place, so that people who have committed a crime a long time in their past and shown that they can be law abiding for a sustained period of time can get their record cleared to enable them to better be able to get a good job and support themselves, so they're not shut out of the job market. But there's a lot of different, it's a very complicated area, and a lot of details to work out. But anyways, I've given Legislative Services a 4-page outline, and which they're drafting up right now, and I've been circulating to stakeholders. And the governor putting money in his budget for it is really important, because it's going to cost a lot of money, and by him putting that placeholder down, it gives us the ability to see that we've got a window to get this done. That's some of the stuff I'm working on. Yeah,
Hey,
Paul?
that's great.
I was just going to say, this is important because of the jobs that record.
Paul, we can't hear you very well.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, it's not just jobs, as you mentioned. It's also housing, student loans. It has a big effect. And people, as long as people have a record, I mean, we're talking about people who've already paid their dues to society. They've been in prison and it's been many years, and they've had a clean record. they should not be, they should be allowed to enter into the rest, into society's good graces, so they could get a job, they can get housing, they can get student loans, they can be productive citizens. And so that's what this is doing. It's a big step for Virginia, and I thank the senator for taking leadership on it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And by the way, one other thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is we also passed the bill last session to allow people to expunge dismissed evictions.
Mhm.
And that bill doesn't go into effect for about another year. But the reason it's important is because a lot of most landlords today use these tenant screening companies, and the screening companies look at evictions that have been filed against you as a tenant, and they come up with a score as to whether somebody should rent to you.
Mhm.
And if a landlord files an eviction and you pay or you get out or whatever, and the eviction's dismissed, they still put it on your record and they use it in the score against you. And so by allowing people to get all these dismissed evictions off, hidden from the public record so you can't see it anymore, it will increase their score to make them more likely to be offered an apartment or whatever. But we passed that last year, but that bill doesn't go into effect for another year. So I'm hoping to publicize that a lot once the law goes into effect.
Good. We'll help you with that. Does anyone have questions for our legislators? We've got just a few minutes left to open it up to anybody. Pam, you want to see if you can get some money for supportive housing?
Absolutely. I was cheering for Mark when he said that. It is much needed.
So we're looking at building 20 units maybe and along Route 1. And what was the actual need that they gave us from the housing department for this area?
I don't remember.
It's like 200 or
20,
something.
but the 20 units are paid for. We need more. Those are
Right.
part of
Well,
the-
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying what we're getting versus what we need.
Yeah, and I don't remember the numbers.
I think it was like 200. It was a lot bigger than 20.
It's big.
I think we have in Fairfax County, we have 90 units countywide for victims of abuse.
Domestic violence, yeah.
Victims of domestic violence. We have 90 units. Think about it. We have 1.2 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's only been increased.
Expansion. Yeah.
Recently.
Years ago.
So there's a huge need in that regard too.
I know we opened a new shelter here in this area last year, and it's always full. And Maddie's always getting new clients that they can't take, so we need more of that too.
Yeah, and it's still happening. This is Maddie.
Maddie.
Paul, I wanted to thank Paul for his help. Unfortunately, the situation, I won't go into detail, but it turned into a kind of terrible situation. I'm really concerned. Paul and them they help with the domestic housing when the shelter can't. When I called, he came to my rescue. But I'm still getting calls every day. There's no, even if they want monies to move out of state, there's no money. They're trying to leave the state to go somewhere else to get away from the perpetrator. There's no monies available. Nobody's helping them, or the case managers don't know about it. It's just a lot. It's like almost we're dropping the domestic violence thing again. And not everybody, but it sounds like that because they are in trauma. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. They're in trauma, and some of them may have mental health issues, which is the case that happened with Paul, and I'll talk to you about that later, Paul. But it's just a lot. And it's just when they call, I don't have any, I tell them you have to do what you have to do. But, and a lot of times they end up going back to the perpetrator. And I don't want anybody to get hurt trying to do that. So we need to put a little bit more concentration on the permanent housing for domestic violence victims.
Yes.
And Paul, again, I thank you.
You're welcome, Maddie. It's always a pleasure to work with you. I know you have the biggest heart in Mount Vernon.
Oh, well, I don't know about all that, but I just thank you. Because I ask that you all keep me in prayer because every day, I mean, I get calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So, anybody have any ideas or suggestions, let me know.
We will. We're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Another big issue is child sexual trafficking and just
Oh, yes.
that's another. I think there's going to be at least one bill coming out of the crime commission on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious. I don't know what the situation really is here, but seen a couple of testing results come out on the school kids that are showing, this is kind of nationwide and also here in Fairfax, showing that especially the minority and the disadvantaged kids in the lower age ranges are being set back by all this Zoom learning. They're not advancing as well as they should. They're not passing their standard tests in math mainly and also in reading. And I'm wondering if anything is worked up into the legislature to provide more support for those kids who are going to need to catch up. That hasn't come up yet. I mean, that's
Mary,
But,
I'll just,
I mean, it's a problem. It's a problem, Mary, but I don't think there's an easy solution to it. And there may be some more funds for the school divisions, but they are going to have to implement it if we're able to find some money for that. And this is going to be a permanent. Well, I don't know. Let's hope not. But it could go on for a while. And also there is a need to have some online learning going into the future for other reasons. So we got to make sure we get deployment of broadband everywhere. And the affordability of broadband is also an issue that we are going to take up. Whether we can help with the monthly charge or not is to be determined, whether we have enough money for that. But it's a real problem. Lots of people are talking about it.
Yeah. And I imagine it's an even bigger problem here, although I haven't heard exactly how bad. I assume it's bad. I don't know how bad. Okay, any last questions? We're coming up on 5:30, and that's an hour and a half is a pretty good tolerance for Zoom meetings. Maria, I see you're here. Do you have any questions? No? Okay, well, I'll thank our legislators. So happy y'all came. I'm really glad that you came and we could hear what you're doing and you listen to us, and that means a lot. And keep us in mind when you know what the issues are that we care about and you have those bills coming up. Give me a call and we'll see if we can, help in some way. Yeah, we'll be sending you emails. Y'all are used to getting emails from me from now here to there about things you should be doing. So I guess that'll continue.
Thanks, Mary.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you all
Thank you.
so much.
all right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Okay, have a good night. Have a good night. Mary, I'll call you later. I have another situation.
Okay, I'll see if I can help.
I'll call you. I'm still working on it, but I'll call you later.
Okay, I'll wait for you.
All right. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.